In the dim candlelight of King Robert's chamber, Ned Stark stood beside the dying king, his heart weighed down by the enormity of what was to come. Robert's once booming voice had grown weak, rasping with every breath. The man who had conquered kingdoms was now a shadow of his former self, the poison from the boar's tusk draining the life from his body. "Write this down, Stark," Robert wheezed, his hand weakly clutching Ned's wrist. "By the gods, you'll protect the realm until Joffrey, until he comes of age. Make sure he's safe." Ned hesitated as he dipped the quill in ink, but this time his mind was sharper, clearer. The truth that had been gnawing at him for days now stood undeniable. Joffrey was not Robert's son. No, he was Jaime Lannister's bastard, born of incest, an abomination. As Robert slumped back into his pillows, murmuring his last words, Ned thought of the Lannisters. He had tried to play the honourable man, to expose the truth without shedding blood. But the game was clearer now. If Cersei learned of Robert's death and Ned's knowledge of her children's true parentage, she would move swiftly and mercilessly. She would see Ned as a threat to her son's claim to the throne and act accordingly. This was not the time for honour. It was time for ruthlessness. With a firm resolve, he sealed the letter appointing him Lord Protector until Robert's heir came of age, deliberately avoiding naming Joffrey in the document. As he stood to leave the chamber, the seeds of a plan formed in his mind, a plan that could ensure the safety of his family, the realm, and the truth. Later that night, Ned met Renly Baratheon in the shadows of the Red Keep's courtyard. The younger brother of the king had been waiting, his expression hard and calculating. "You spoke of 100 swords," Ned said quietly, his voice steely. "I'll take them." Renly's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "You've come around then? Good. We have no time to waste, Lord Stark. Cersei will act the moment Robert's breath leaves him." Ned nodded. "We must move swiftly. Cersei and her children need to be taken into custody before they realise what's happened." Renly grinned darkly. "I have loyal men, strong and discreet. They can handle it." Ned's eyes hardened. "Do it quietly. No bloodshed until absolutely necessary. I don't want the city to descend into chaos." Before dawn, the plan was set in motion. Renly's men, joined by a contingent of Ned's household guards, moved through the Red Keep like shadows. As the city still slept, the Lannister guards stationed outside Cersei's quarters were taken by surprise, their throats slit before they could raise the alarm. The Queen and her children, Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, were dragged from their beds, gagged and bound. Joffrey's muffled screams echoed down the hall as he struggled against his captors, but they silenced him swiftly. Myrcella wept silently, clutching her little brother Tommen, who was too young to understand the danger they were in. Cersei, however, was eerily calm, her emerald eyes burning with cold fury as she glared at Ned. "You'll regret this, Stark," she hissed as they threw her into her secure chamber under heavy guard. "When Tywin hears of this—" "He won't," Ned interrupted, his voice like ice. "You won't be sending any ravens. You and your children are my prisoners now, Cersei, and you will remain so until the realm is secure." Her face twisted into a mask of hatred, but she said nothing more as the heavy door slammed shut behind her. Ned ordered the King's Guard led by Sir Barristan Selmy to ensure that Cersei and her children were not allowed any contact with the outside world. With Cersei and her brood in custody, Ned turned his attention to the rest of the players in the game, Varys and Littlefinger, two men whose webs of influence extended throughout the city, and who could not be allowed to manipulate this situation for their own ends. Ned summoned Sir Barristan once more. "Have the King's Guard escort Lord Baelish and Lord Varys at all times," Ned ordered. "They are not to leave the Red Keep or speak with anyone without my permission." Barristan nodded gravely. "As you command, my lord." Renly, standing nearby, gave a satisfied smirk. "You're playing the game well, Stark, but Tywin Lannister won't sit idly by when he learns of this." Ned turned to Renly. "He won't get the chance. I'm sending a message to Stannis. He is Robert's true heir and the throne belongs to him." Renly frowned. "Stannis? He'll be a harder king than Robert ever was." Ned's expression softened briefly. "Perhaps, but he is the rightful king, and he will bring order to the realm." Renly said nothing, though his displeasure was clear. Still, he nodded. "Then we prepare for war, Lord Stark, because when Tywin learns of this, he'll march south with every soldier he can muster." A few days later, far to the west in Casterly Rock, Tywin Lannister sat in his grand hall, his golden lion banner draped behind him. He was reading a report from one of his spies when a breathless rider burst into the chamber, falling to his knees before Tywin. "My lord, news from King's Landing." Tywin's piercing gaze settled on the man. "Speak." The rider swallowed hard, his voice trembling. "Lord Stark, he has taken the Queen and her children prisoner. Robert is dead, and Stark is named Lord Protector. His men, along with Renly's, ambushed the Lannister guards in the city and killed them. The city is under Stark's control." For a moment, Tywin said nothing, his face an unreadable mask. Then, slowly, he rose from his seat. "They took Cersei and my grandchildren?" His voice was dangerously low, a venomous calm masking the seething rage beneath. "Yes, my lord. They are being held under guard in the Red Keep." The silence that followed was deafening. Tywin's fists clenched, knuckles white. "Summon Jaime," he said coldly, "and ready the troops. We march for King's Landing." Back in King's Landing, Ned Stark's plans were swiftly coming together. Stannis had been sent word, the message carried by his most trusted men. With Cersei and her children secured and the capital firmly under his control, Ned fortified the Red Keep, preparing for the inevitable confrontation with Tywin Lannister. Sir Barristan, ever the loyal commander of the King's Guard, who had read Robert's final letter himself and had accepted the final command of his sworn king, now stood resolute at Ned's side. "The King's Guard have sworn to protect you, Lord Stark. Your orders are being followed to the letter." "Good," Ned replied, his voice hard. "Ensure that Varys and Baelish are under constant watch. We can't afford any surprises." Barristan nodded. "And what of the Lannisters, my lord?" Ned's face darkened. "They remain where they are. Under no circumstances are they to leave their chambers. If they attempt to escape, they are to be dealt with." Barristan hesitated, then bowed. "As you wish." The days passed in tense silence, the city buzzing with rumours of Robert's death and the sudden seizure of power by House Stark. Ned knew that Tywin's response would be swift and brutal. The Lannisters had never taken defeat lightly, and with Cersei and her children in his custody, Tywin would stop at nothing to reclaim them. Renly was right. War was coming. One morning, as Ned was seated in the small council chamber, a raven arrived. The message was from Stannis Baratheon, cold and formal as ever, but clear in its intent. "Ned Stark, you have done well to secure the capital. I will sail for King's Landing at once. The Iron Throne is mine by right, and I will claim it. Prepare for my arrival. Stannis Baratheon." Ned folded the letter and tucked it away. Stannis' arrival would bring legitimacy to his role as Lord Protector, but it would also bring new challenges. The realm would not accept Stannis easily. He was a harsh man, feared and disliked by many. Yet, he was the rightful heir, and that was all that mattered to Ned. The following week, word came that Tywin Lannister's army was on the march, with Jaime Lannister leading the vanguard. The Lannisters moved with frightening speed, cutting down any resistance in their path. The full might of the West was descending on King's Landing. Ned called his bannermen to the capital, rallying the northern forces in preparation for the battle to come. The city was fortified, Renly's banners from the Stormlands standing guard alongside the Starks. The streets were tense with the impending sense of conflict, the people whispering of war and treachery. But Ned remained resolute. He had chosen his path, and there was no turning back. On a cold, windswept day, the banners of House Lannister appeared on the horizon. Tywin's forces had arrived. Ned stood on the walls of King's Landing, his cloak billowing in the wind. The city lay quiet behind him, the Red Keep a fortress of stone and steel. He had prepared for this moment, knowing that it would come, and now it was here. Renly appeared at his side, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. "We'll need to fight them head on, Ned. There's no reasoning with Tywin." Ned nodded grimly. "Then we'll fight." And so the stage was set. The war for the Iron Throne had begun. In the distance, Tywin Lannister stood with his son Jaime, surveying the walls of King's Landing. "They'll be ready for us," Jaime said, his golden armor gleaming in the sun. "Stark's no fool." Tywin's expression was cold as steel. "It won't matter. We'll take the city, and we'll take back what's ours." Jaime grinned, his hand resting on his sword. I look forward to it. And with that, the battle for the future of Westeros loomed, the clash of lions and wolves and stags echoing across the realm.